years old when I started to notice how I was different from my other white classmates. I noticed how some of them had their beautiful straight long hair, and there was me with my curly hair with the typical black girl hairstyles. I started to realize how no one else really looked like me. Their skin was light, mine was dark. I stood out. I wasn't like everyone else. I remember in the car I told my mom, I don't like being chocolate, I want to be vanilla. And then she proceeded to tell me how there's nothing wrong with being chocolate, and how all the flavors were equally as good. And that's when I started to realize there's more than to just being a human. There are other races and ethnicities that made us different. Even after that talk with my mom, I still thought in order to be pretty and to fit in, you must have lighter skin. I practically lived in these white and pink tights because they hid my dark legs. I only wanted to play with the white Barbies because they were prettier than the darker skinned ones. At the time, Cinderella was my favorite princess because she looked, because she had blonde hair and blue eyes, and I aspired to be like her. I wanted to hide my blackness so I feel like I can belong. Fast forward to elementary school, I moved to this public school called University Hills. And although it was more diverse, it was still predominantly white. And from kindergarten to 5th grade, I remember being the only black girl in my class. Can you imagine that? The first 10 years of your life growing up with very few people who looked like you. The first 10 years of always being the odd one out. The first 10 years being alone. And don't get me wrong, I had friends and super close relationships throughout my time there. But it wasn't until sophomore year that I made my first 100% African American friend at school. But going back to my elementary school years, I wore my hair completely natural all the way up until 5th grade, when I had the opportunity to straighten my long, thick curls for the first time. When I got my hair straightened, it felt like a whole new world has opened up to me, and I finally felt that I could fit in. It was almost like a sigh of relief. My hair looked like the other people with naturally straight hair, so now I fit in. Now people would stop coming up to me and start grabbing and touching my hair like an animal, or asking me questions like, how often do you wash it? People will start treating me and seeing me as the same, and that was my mentality when I first straightened my hair. My hair was always very important to me, and my mom always told me that I was blessed with long, beautiful curls, and that a lot of people would kill to have the kind of hair that I have, and I took pride in that. Unfortunately, the only way I could take pride in that is when it was straight. To me, curly hair was ugly. Curly hair made you different. No one likes big curly hair. Straight hair was only acceptable. Straight hair makes you fit in, and straight hair makes you beautiful. I can go on and on about how hair really has impacted the way I saw myself as an African American, but that's for a different occasion. It wasn't until last year when I started to see that the trend of wearing your hair natural was in. I first saw this when I was on Instagram one day, and I saw a girl rocking her natural hair with her edges slayed and her curls just popping. From there, I just kept scrolling and looking up different videos and following different Instagram accounts dedicated to natural hair. For the first time since I was 5, I saw that natural hair was beautiful. So after years of straightening my hair, a lot of curls were damaged over the summer. I decided to chop off my long, beautiful hair so I can start my natural hair journey. And it wasn't until last year when I took sports sociology where I felt something click inside of me that it was time to express my blackness and to be proud of who I am and to be proud that I am different. And wearing my natural hair was the first step of me being proud to be black. By me showing off my curls and styling the crown on my head shows that I am proud to have hair like no one else, and I don't need straight hair to fit in. You'd be surprised on how many people came up to me and asked me why I was doing this all of a sudden, and how many people frowned upon me because I was, in a way, turning myself into someone I'm not. But then I look back and I realize that those were the same people who also called me whitewashed, or the whitest black person they've ever met, or an Oreo. To me, it feels like I get hate for trying to fit in, and I also get hate for trying to express my culture. And after many years, I've just learned to deal with it. Growing up in a predominantly white community all my life meant learning how to pick and choose your battles. Every day, I experienced ignorance and microaggressions. And if I got upset over every little ignorant comment that I get on a daily basis, I would just get exhausted all the time. It's not fun when I have to brush it off and pretend it's no big deal, and I wish they would stop so I can catch a break. But I'm afraid that's not the world we live in right now, and I hope that one day it will change and that more people will become aware and that more people will become educated because I'm pretty sure most marginalized people are tired and exhausted just like me. And the last thing I want to touch on is how being an African American in a predominantly white community my whole life is how people doubt my credibility of me knowing what it's like to be oppressed. But here's the reality. My dad goes out in his sweatpants and sweatshirt with his hood up. I fear for his safety. When I travel with my mom, I notice the judgmental looks that we get because people assume that I have a deadbeat dad. I fear that one day that I get pulled over by the police, and instead of me being worried about getting a ticket, I'll be worried if I make it back home alive. When hanging out with my cousins in public, I see the scared looks from people assuming that we're aggressive, loud, or even dangerous. And even my old little brother being called the N-word at school multiple times, or being told that he can't ride the bus or play with a group of friends because he's black. Having people assume that I'm not smart or see their surprised faces that I tell them when I've been on the honor roll since 6th grade, and seeing people's confused faces when I tell them I like Backstreet Boys and not Jay-Z. I've been asked if I've ever been concerned about wearing the color black because of how it would clash with my skin. I've been told that I'm very pretty for a dark-skinned girl. People have even asked me if I was one of George Washington's slaves, since I was black and I had the same last name as him. The list can just go on, but just because I live in the suburbs, and just because I go to a predominantly white high school, and just because I don't act like the stereotype of my race, doesn't mean I haven't experienced the same things as people like me who live in the hood, who go to a predominantly black high schools, who are in gangs, or who live in poverty. It's quite upsetting on how people think that I'm not valid and that I shouldn't be upset or offended because I'm privileged. And I shouldn't have to prove myself every time to show people that I, an African American woman, go through these things too. Thank you.